Welcome to the Just Be Nice Project podcast with me, Josh Reed Jones, discussing all things powerful positive impact, finding out how you can remove barriers to opportunity for others through insightful and hopefully interesting conversations covering honest, diverse, and sometimes neglected areas of discussion. We are, as always, seeking to create extraordinary positive change in the world by helping you make ordinary positive change as we help you help others. You've got through the intro, now hang in there for the good stuff, strap yourself in, turn it up, and as always, just be nice as we roll the show. Welcome to the Just Be Nice Project podcast. As we record this today, we respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are recording, the Bunwurrung and Wiradjuri peoples of the Kulin Nation, and we pay respect to their elders past and present. You're here with me, Josh Reed Jones, he, him, and today I am catching up with trainer, dog owner, male model, business owner, vegan, animal rights guy, close friends of mine, and a bloody ripper bloke, Paris Little, he, him. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Great to have you here. Let's start with today. I feel like saying you're a trainer or a coach is a bit of an understatement. It's a bit of an undersell. You do own a gym in Windsor,
Yes.
Victoria, called
Correct.
Praxis Athletic.
Correct, yes.
Tell us about Praxis and what goes on there.
Yeah, so Praxis Athletic is a strength conditioning facility. However, we focus on not just group classes, but also personal training. So we specialize in, identifying different types of training that people are interested in and then supplying programming streams for that. So we have a specific strength training program that people can come in and do if they want to get stronger, a specific gymnastic strength training program if they want to learn how to move their own body, a body composition program, so if they just want to look good naked, then they can train for that. So it's a group training model, I guess you could say, but it's quite specific in nature. It's been open for 2 years. We've been, where are we now? We're located at the back of Chapel Street, so we're kind of hidden. It's like down the laneway a little bit, so it's a little bit hard to find. And before that, I think I was with you down in Port Melbourne.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
Damn straight.
Yeah, so...
Now you've got much nicer walls near your gym.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of colour down the laneway.
What program is Georgie on?
Georgie,
Because he's doing his own thing seven
George.
times a day.
So George is on every program, dude. George is like a little minor celebrity. So I'll give a bit of an intro to George. He trained with us basically since we opened, and he kind of fell in love with everything that we did. He was looking for somewhere where he could kind of like learn more about movement, be educated into different methods of training, and just explore what he could do with his body, right? And that's why a lot of people come to us, because they're probably, for most people that come and work with us, have trained for a couple of years and they want to know what else is out there, what else can they do, what else can they achieve. And George is definitely in that category. So yeah, he's there like maybe 6 times a day sometimes. I come back. Some of our members we give keys to that we've trained with us for a while, and I'll come back and he's already in there training again after training him in the morning.
You can tell by looking at him, he trains a lot though.
Yeah, he's a jack dude. He's like the pin-up for everyone. Like most people, like, so how long is it going to take until I can look like George?
Yeah.
And like probably 24 sessions in 3 days for the next like 5 years. But
yeah. Still the only person I've ever seen get a singular ab cramp.
Yes. Yeah, the little alien cramp that popped out.
That's the best.
Yeah.
How important is physical fitness? And, you know, this is something I suppose that over time, you know, evolves for a lot of people and their relationship with it changes. So what's the difference then as well between fitness and sort of well-being?
Well, if I go back to like the first question of, you know, what's the benefits, or how important is it, right? So I think for myself personally, and for the people that I've worked with over the past, say, like 8 to 10 years, the first thing that it helps with is like mind state and just everything else. It seems to be that most people find once they start moving their body in any way, it can just be walking, it can be training, it can be specific, non-specific, it doesn't really matter, but just doing something where they're moving their body changes people's mind state big time. So everything else seems to just expand and get better. So from that standpoint, I think it's really, really, really important. And then from there, I think it's really, really subjective. My analogy is like this. How important is it for me to learn how to like play guitar and express myself musically? To me, not that important. I appreciate it and I know that it's important. For some people, it's like the pinnacle of life for them, and that's what makes them happy. So depending on where physicality is for you, I think it's really on a sliding scale of how important it is for you, and you just need to explore that to the best of your ability. So if you really, really care about it and it makes me really, really happy, then do it lots. If you're not somebody who loves training all the time and moving all the time, I don't think there should be pressure to do it all the time. I think you should do a little bit. It's like everyone should drink some water. Everybody should eat some vegetables. We all know that. Everybody should move. But how much is dependent on how much you love it.
Yeah. And so the difference then between the baseline minimum requirement for kind of this wellness is kind of maintaining this positive brain space. Do you have any, I suppose, idea about how to navigate that for people who don't enjoy the training so much? I mean, it's something that for some people I think it's hard to understand enjoying it as much as it is for others understanding why you don't enjoy it. How, if you're someone who doesn't enjoy the physical training aspect of things, like you don't enjoy practicing guitar, how do you navigate it to a point where you're at least maintaining like a sort of peak wellness with minimum love of activity?
Like the minimum effective dose type deal. Look, I think the first thing people should do is kind of explore. It's part of the reason why I set up Praxis Athletic with the systems that we've got, so that people can say, okay, I want to try working with a barbell for a while, and they just fall in love with that method of training. And if they do, that's great. Go and do that. And if they don't like it, we'll try handstands and ring strength and gymnastics work. Or if you want to try boxing, we've got Roy or like other friends that run boxing facilities. Go work with those guys. You know, just keep exploring, keep trying things out. And then from there, and this isn't like, I mean, we could go into like different research that's been done on like the minimum effective dose is 7 minutes of movement a day or whatever. Like rather than going down that route, I would just say try and just move frequently every single day. Like just every single day do something, a new activity. For how long? 30 to 60 minutes. Like just go and do something.
Yeah, by the time you start doing anything, I mean, 2 minutes in, you haven't really even started doing anything.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
By the time you've done something, you're 30 minutes in, you're like, I did something. That's cool.
Exactly. To be more specific, and I think like people often want some sort of specific prescription. What is the actual minimum effective dose? I'd probably say it's a good idea to lift something heavy once a week. You can go find a coach or find somebody or a gym to teach you how to do that. Just lift something heavy against the force of gravity from the floor, overhead, squat, compress your body into a squat once a week. Run once a week. Do that. Try that.
Just do what feels good.
Try that. It's so overcomplicated for like the basics. Like you don't have to do too much.
Yeah.
You'll be pretty happy.
Yeah. Excellent. You're doing some modeling these days, you handsome bugger. How do you reconcile goals, fitness, self-love, function, and all these things on a daily basis where you kind of balance all of that out for yourself? You have to get picked to be in photo shoots, and you have to decide between like, well, how much form do I want versus function of my body? Because you know, obviously this matters to you as well. And
for sure,
got a long time of actually doing stuff, and you're like, well, if I do too much of this stuff I enjoy, maybe I'm going to look weird in this photo shoot or this catwalk situation or whatever. And
there's two things that like I would try and do with that. Firstly, not take it very seriously. Like really do it.
It's a good move.
It's like it came about very casually, and just don't take it too seriously. I mean, the gym, Praxis Athletic, like my animals, bow and esco, and all of that stuff, like that's really where my heart is. Everything else is just an experience, and if it's just treated as an experience, it can be really enjoyable. There's no pressure on it. I've got no expectation, and that makes it a really sort of fun thing to work through. And then, I don't know. It's just fun, man. Like it's just like
just kicking on. Just roll with the ponchos.
Yeah, just no pressure. Like no pressure to. It's not like my main objective.
Yep. Well, that makes life easy then.
Yeah, it makes it pretty simple.
Little side fun thing that happens.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like I don't know. It's like going surfing for the first time. You're standing up on the board. You fall over in the water. Who gives a shit? Like you're just out there to have some fun. So,
I think that's a solid piece of advice for anyone thinking about taking themselves too seriously in any space. Just generally. You love a nap.
Love a nap, mate.
Discuss. Seriously, should we all nap though?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think that's a huge missing part of Western society is naps. Like, Spanish and Mexicans have got it down pat.
Bring back naps.
Siestas, dude.
# nap.
That's where it's at. I think that for me, like, I'm up all the time super early, and I always have breaks throughout the day. So from a productivity standpoint, if I assess where I'm going to be the least productive, it's normally around, say, 8 hours after waking. I'm just a little bit tired by then. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to try and force myself to do unproductive, really shitty work that's low on quality. I'm not going to try and train at that point. If I have 25 minutes to like just close my eyes and lay down, I feel amazing for the rest of the day. And I can do stuff in the evening. I can take other sessions. I can train again. Everything feels great.
So nap,
I highly recommend it. Yeah, I mean, look, meditation's a huge thing now, right? Like everyone is talking about it, recommending it, and I would as well. So that's something that I've been doing in the mornings when I'm like more awake. Because if I try and meditate when I'm sleepy, I just want to go to sleep.
You just fall asleep, yeah.
But the combination of those two, that's like an amazing day if I get that done. Training, meditate, nap in the afternoon. That's an epic day.
I mean, you talk about productivity.
Mm-hmm.
Does it kill you in the inside to have one of the least productive, fattest dogs on Instagram?
Yeah, a little bit. Dude, I'm so close to creating an Instagram page for them. Like so close, because he's just so lazy. Yeah, I don't know. I think I just accepted that once his balls got chopped off, he didn't have much testosterone. He's still happy. I don't think he was sad about that.
Yeah.
But he then just became very lazy. And I've got a soft spot for giving them food, so I think I've made him a little bit chunky.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But he's not running it off.
No, I try and make him run it off, but he reluctantly just walks.
It's pretty funny. I enjoy it. I enjoy that you have a fat dog to watch on there. And he's not like obese, but he's just lazy. He's fat on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. And he can run, like, when he goes, he's good. And
he's a power lifter.
Yeah, man, 100%.
Big time.
Yeah, he's a little bit more like Mark Bell, somewhere between when he was like mega fat and now jacked and tanned where he is now.
Yeah.
He's like in between those 2 points.
Yeah, when he was probably his funniest, but
yes.
But now he's very serious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of like having your balls cut off and not having any testosterone, that's slowing you down.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things you think get in the way of people being able to enjoy the function and form of their bodies? Maybe some things that the fitness industry or wellness industry does not so well.
I think the people at the top of those industries tend to become very dogmatic with their opinions on what's good and what's bad. So there was like this period of time where it was like, cardio is like a really shit thing to do. There's a period of time where there'd be people talking about getting really strong was a bad thing to do. A period of time where people ignored mobility and flexibility. There's all these like phases where people love to swing really far to one direction, really far to the other. And like most things, generally speaking, there's some sort of good middle ground where there's good stuff here and then good stuff over there as well. Yeah. And because of those really like really hard opinions on methods of training and kind of being like, for instance, people love to hate CrossFit. Like, dude, people back in the day or even now that it's like love to hate on that, right?
Yeah.
Right. Instead of just being like, just enjoy whatever it is you're doing. I think that has a really negative impact on people's opinions of themselves, because they see that this person's talking about maybe getting strong is like the number one thing that you should be doing, and they're really, really weak. So they feel like they're lesser, and that becomes something they don't enjoy because they're not quite at that level yet. And being strong is like the absolute thing that should happen. It can make people think a little bit shitty about themselves rather than just being like, hey, I don't actually want to be that strong anyway, so who cares?
Yeah. Do you think it forces people into holding stronger opinions about what they're doing than they normally would? Because someone's like, that sucks. And you're like, well, I'm forced to defend this and say that it's a bigger deal than it is just because you say it sucks.
Yeah, I think so. I think that that's a really good point. It just kind of forces people into a corner to be like aggravated by those opinions.
Yeah.
So they hold on to it a little bit emotionally. It's like nutrition. People hold on to training like emotion.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because according to the memes, we shouldn't have got this far without you talking about being a vegan.
Oh, yes. Very true. Very, very true.
You are a vegan, so... Yes. Scotch is vegan, so we're lucky.
Yes, fuck, I didn't even check that out.
Cheers. That's as vegan as it's going to get, whatever, by the time this is the thing. But you haven't always been a vegan. So how did you get there?
Going back to Fat Boy, so Bo got him, and he was probably like maybe 6 months old or something like that. And I was driving him to a park to go for a run with him. And we pulled up next to a cattle truck, and I think it was bobby calves, so the little male calves that they don't make it very long through life. I don't know whether it's 6 months or something. They're the male calves that get sent off to slaughter. And Bo was sitting on the car seat next to me, and I kind of looked up, and I could see their noses poking through the grates. And then I kind of looked down at him, and it just looked so similar. Like, it looked really like it was a truck full of bows.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that point that I think I kind of connected the dots between like, okay, from, species of animal to species to animal, there's differences, but there's also so many similarities. It didn't make sense in my mind to separate them and eat one and hurt one and not the other. Regardless of how long, one animal's been a companion or not. I mean, you can see like there's so many like amazing videos of cows that are just like playing with people and just chilling. They just look like big dogs. I kind of made that connection. So once I figured that out, it was kind of easy. I transitioned from not eating meat and chicken to just eating fish, but then started to understand that fish experience pain just like other animals as well. I just didn't really want to contribute to that. So it wasn't a hard thing to do. I used to think, man, like how the fuck are people vegan? Like, I loved steak. I loved coming home when I was living with Nan and she'd cook like lamb chops and stuff like that, all about it. But yeah, once I thought about that, once I think loved an animal like I did my pet, I was like, I don't really want to contribute to that.
Yeah, well, I feel like you must be a little bit lying because you're pretty muscular. Or there's something people aren't telling us about eating vegetables and maintaining some kind of lean muscle mass.
Yeah, it's easy, man. It's so easy. Like, eating a combination of just different plants and grains without overcomplicating things. I have some soy products, tempeh, some tofu, and I easily get enough protein and feel fine. I think initially I just made the decision and accepted it. Hey, I might have a decrease in performance, but I didn't understand it's just like a regular person. Like, I'm not an athlete trying to compete at, say, Mr. Olympia or something, right? Or at the Olympics or anything like that. So there's no real detrimental risk to me losing 10% of my performance. Like, that means nothing in the grand scheme of like our world, comparative to the impact, whether it be environmentally or for myself personally, like ethically, to like eating animals. It just didn't compare. Didn't really add up.
Give it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So when people are like, you can do better if you do this, you're like, yeah, probably, but I'm making a decision between.
Exactly. Yeah. It wouldn't make a difference to me either way. But I'm definitely stronger than I've ever been. I can do more things. Training's going great. I can train twice a day easily, in between 4 and 6 days a week. Recovery's fantastic. As long as I eat enough, so if I stay on top of getting enough fruit in particular. I find that fruit gives me a lot of energy. If I eat a lot of that in the morning and then eat enough grains and stuff like that, I'm totally fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine you have to eat quite a bit.
Yeah, it's no more in like necessarily volume. And it's good for me. I love to eat, dude. Like, love to eat. So it's fine for me to have like a massive big bowl of salad or whatever else. But yeah, it's easy.
Yeah, wicked. Yeah. Well, look, you're a great trainer, and I'm not just saying that because you're here. I actually know from experience over many years of having you professionally and as a training partner and a coach and a buddy. But there are some photos from back in the day that would maybe not indicate that you were going to end up this kind of healthy, fit, fantastic trainer situation.
Yes.
You left Australia at about 8 for the sunny United Kingdom.
Correct, yes.
Tell us about what was cracking in Bedfordshire.
Yeah, Bedfordshire, dude. You nailed it. So Bedfordshire was the county that I lived in, and then Biggleswade was the town that we lived in.
Biggleswade is not a town.
Dude, I know.
Notorious Biggleswade?
How good is the name?
That's so good.
It was a small country town. It was great. It was like, I think living over there was an amazing experience. Went over there, when I was around 8 or 9. We stayed there for about 3 or 4 years, came back for a couple, then went back again. And that was like high school years. It was an interesting transition. Most people over there, when I was a kid, all the guys were Dave or Matt. They all had basically a shaved head or some sort of like really, really slick, like short haircut.
Yeah.
Heaps of hair gel in it. And I had like shoulder length hair. Having a different accent was already weird enough for people, and then having a name like Paris just like fucking blew people's mind. Like,
it still blows people's mind.
Yeah, all the time, all the time. People always think I'm a girl. Paris Hilton fucked it for all the dudes called Paris.
Big time.
Yeah. So, that was interesting, but it was great. Really enjoyed it. It was an interesting little town. It was a good experience.
Hardworking parents that leave unsupervised children. I feel like there's a misunderstanding that they don't care that much when really, circumstances force you to be busy in order to provide. It's actually kind of this weird expression of caring. But when you leave kids unsupervised, you get this kind of weird Lord of the Flies type survival of the fittest situation where they're raising each other. And the sort of biggest, toughest kids come to the top of the pile. How did you navigate that sort of environment? as you bounce back and forward between, different countries and these shaved head kids and...
Yeah, it was... I think... So I've got 3 sisters, and I think in hindsight, looking back, I think as a young male, I felt as though it was always like my role to, in a sense, be protecting of sorts. So to look after them. And I think that ended up getting me into a little bit of trouble growing up, and getting a little bit lost and confused about how to actually do that, like how to be a protector without being in some way either be aggressive or violent to protect my family. So I assumed that role, I think, growing up, to try and like look after the family, I guess, whenever I felt like it was necessary.
Yeah, it's tough to navigate as a young man, I think, sometimes that feeling of responsibility when you don't have an idea of how to take that on. And there's certainly not comparable people your own age that you can look up to do that. 14-year-olds can't look to other 14-year-olds as who are taking care of their families. You're looking up to grown-ups, or you're just part of the other 14-year-olds that are racing around or whatever. When you start to find a way to maybe get on top of things, and this is something that people of a certain kind of background, I think, can relate to, and some people don't. To find your feet with that attitude and in a strange space and with these things going on, and then navigating it in a way that's not necessarily super positive all the time. You become a kid that's rubbing some people the wrong way, and then they ask you to leave school, and you're like 14 or whatever. Do you think your experience that leaving was positive or like a shit thing to do to someone who needed something else?
I think that the better option would have been to understand or just look that there's 2 types of, not specifically 2, but for myself anyway, I saw 2 types of kids. There's kids that are like very scholastic and very interested in what formal education can provide, and then there's kids that want to express themselves more physically, and I was definitely the latter. Now, here I had numerous friends that went to a school where there was lots of sport, there was lots of like hands-on activity, still basics like maths and English, but it was just much more of a physical school, and that allowed them to express themselves how it made sense for them. So I think a better option would have been to have more facilities like that. That would have been fantastic. At the same time, in no way do I regret actually leaving school at a really early age. I got to work and just learn what that's like to just get up early and work and have those sorts of pressures on where it actually really matters. And that helped me a lot with like my work ethic now, helped me a lot with understanding what it actually means to like work hard. School isn't hard work. School's just annoying.
Yeah.
And just sometimes boring. So that's what I found got me in trouble. I was just bored sitting there all the time. But if I was physical at any point, if you just asked me to dig a hole as a young guy, I'm like, sweet, I would dig the shit out of that hole. How deep do you want it to be? I was like ready to do it because it was a physical thing.
Yep.
So having those 2 options, being able to do that, or even having to have the option of kind of exhausting kids further with more physical exercise first, I think goes a really, really long way. I know whenever I trained a lot, whenever I was boxing, when I was playing rugby, it's when I was the most well-behaved because I had something to kind of drain my energy. Because otherwise sitting in school was just like, I was like twitching all the time, like scratching on tables or throwing shit at people because it was just, I had so much energy to burn off. It's like if I don't walk my dogs, they'll chew the house apart.
Yeah.
And young guys are like that. They're just like bored. They need to do something. Trying to teach Bo and Esco anything when they haven't been walked is impossible. But if I run them around a lot and take them for a big walk first and then try and get them to do something, come, sit, whatever, easy. And yeah, honestly, it's exactly the same with young guys.
So when you take a bunch of young guys that haven't had that experience and you put them in another place like grade school and you don't wear them out, the experience now is just all of the most bored, struggling kids in the same room. Do you find that worse?
Well, worse because they're also then trying to be the top dog of those types of kids.
Yep.
Because they get admiration for being, like support for being the naughtiest or the funniest or talking the most shit or the most violent or whatever it may be. They get looked up because that's what they all kind of have done leading to that point. So it's like all the negatives that they feel they get praised for from one another get fueled more because they boost each other up with that.
Yep.
So it's terrible.
I feel like that's a thing that this kind of conservative attitude misses, is like, well, it's just a school, you should just get it and you should just embrace that opportunity for scholastic education. And if you don't do it, it's because you're an abject failure, and you always will be. So we just keep lumping you in the same system, but just changing the people around you until you're all like that. And then we can then say that's why you're all a mess anyway. Still after that, did you come out of that and decide that it's, I suppose, learning that was shit, or just that, when I don't get the point of it and when I don't see where this is going, it's not engaging, and so what's the point of trying to teach people stuff they don't understand the point of?
To a degree. I think that there's merit to learning history, there's merit to learning geography, there's merit to learning art, and there's merit to learning about your body, and there's all of these things that you learn through school. They all make sense at some point in your life. They don't all have to be taught all at the same time, I don't believe. At no point from the ages of 8 to 20 did I need to know about ancient Rome. But recently I've started researching that and looking into that because I find it really interesting now. So there's things that make sense, I think. I think it makes sense to learn about basic mathematics. I think it makes sense to learn how to read and write because we all need to use that regularly. But everything has a bit of a limit. So for some kids, I think it'd be a better option to potentially just find what it is like the minimum to give them there, and then give them the option to find what it is that they really want to explore. But until there's motivation, I guess, from like the education system and from the political system to create more people that try and put themselves into, I think, potentially entrepreneurial positions, which there's not, I can't see why they would want to change that system. Because the system, essentially through education, is set up to make people good at going into just university and then the basic workforce to work for other people, not to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know when that will change.
People go through an education system set up to end up in uni or to end up in the workforce, and you go through an educational experience that is to set up who's the biggest dog in the yard, who can drink the most, who hits the hardest, who's the toughest, who cares the least about authority. How did you navigate that? How did that sort of the hangover from that experience affect the next little bit after you got out of school and were here? And obviously, I think you tried to join the Marines?
Yes. Yeah, the Royal Marines. Yeah, and that was something that I always had an interest in. When I went to, I was expelled from a school in the UK, and the school that I went to, they did a good job, kind of the example that I gave before of like allowing you to pick, what you want to learn about. Do maths and English, but then, pick what else you want to learn about. Mm-hmm. They allowed me to learn about the history of the Royal Marines, which at that point in time had so much merit to like what I wanted. I studied for it. I read, I never read books. I wasn't interested in that. And it helped a lot. And that was fantastic. So yeah, that was really, really good. But the Royal Marines didn't work out. I was still quite I don't think I was an angry young guy. I was just aggressive. I didn't understand how to, again, be protective without being violent. I would just lump them all in together. Didn't have the skills to navigate situations like that without being physical. So that meant the Royal Marines didn't work out. But I mean, in hindsight, again, I've got no regrets about that either. I think that was a fantastic thing to avoid now.
Yeah.
It was good to miss that boat and then come back here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been back here.
Yeah. You came back here and it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows when you got back?
Yeah, same sort of thing. I think, I had 2 years of just catching up with friends and then got into some pretty serious trouble in regards to, again, just violent crimes, and was very close to going to jail. That was what I thought was going to happen. I didn't think that I'd get a suspended sentence, which is what I got, luckily and really thankfully. And I think the reason I was able to move forward from all of those negative situations was because I kind of found what was enough for me.
Yep.
And I think everyone's got that limit. Everyone's got that point where they're like, no, this is enough now. I've got to turn it around. And that's how I learned. That's how I changed my life, because I was like, I don't want any of that.
It's interesting. It's telling when you talk to people in this environment and you go up around it, and the difference between and I'm sure, this is something I know that you know about as well, where you've got these people who have a very strong protective instinct, and the trouble that they get in a lot of the time stems from that sort of inability to reconcile the need for violent retribution or action in the moment. And then there's other people who are recklessly violent, almost indiscriminately. They have that in them. And of course, it's not always the case that you end up in court with a suspended sentence because someone obviously recognises that this doesn't seem like your character is is the second one. You know, it seems like you're a bit of a unsure person, but your intentions aren't terrible. How now, having been through that, you know, might you try and explain that to someone in that situation who's a teen who is caught between that violent validation, and it is an instant validation, and it's a rush, and you know you've done a job at least at the time of the conflict, and going, but also this is not the way, because you get locked up, you're not protecting anybody.
Yeah, I think it almost ties into like some of the benefits in regards to physicality and moving your body. I think something that training does when you go deeper into it is it gives you the ability to think about how you're feeling and actually be very conscious about how different actions make you feel. And you're right, you get like instant gratification from doing something to somebody who you feel deserves it, but you have like epic repercussions and then also really negative feelings after it as well. Like it's like a feeling on your chest of like anxiety and pressure and stress and worry and concern, and you know, thoughts going through your mind of what's the retribution going to be? Is something going to come back to you for multiple reasons? Are the police going to be involved? Where did that person end up? So the more conscious you are, I think, of how things make you feel and really think about it. How do you feel after a big night out drinking the next day? Like, was that really worth it? Like, do you feel really terrible? Maybe don't do that then. Or maybe you're at a point in your life where it feels okay and nothing bad happened, you enjoy it. Okay, but just be conscious and make that decision. And it's the same thing for somebody in that situation. How do you feel about potentially losing all of your family, not seeing them, not be able to touch somebody, going to visit people in prison where I can't put my hands on them? It's a really horrible experience, and you feel like really separated from that person. And I'm on the right side of that glass, let alone where they are, where they have no physical contact with the people they love. So if guys in that situation or anybody in that situation weighs up how they would feel and think about that, it's much easier to make better decisions. Things come up all the time still now where I would react a lot different 10 years ago than I would now. And the thing that stopped me from reacting like I did when I was a kid is thinking about what I could lose and how I'd feel. Yeah. And that really helps. And I mean, also you carry around a handful of reminders on your person in the form of scars and teeth situation and all this kind of stuff. At the time, do you recognise the difference between how that felt at the time versus how you look at it now, and on how you maybe transition? Because I feel like now you're quite comfortable with, and as you should be, you be very comfortable with the fact you're a fantastic guy and you're doing very well, and it's excellent. But as you transition away and you've got visible marks, and whether anyone else makes the association or doesn't, you know. Did you feel that kind of like ebb and flow navigating like those things from feeling like, yeah, that's a thing, it's a story, it's a badge of honor, into like, I'm a little bit not sure about this, into like, you know what, it's cool, it's part of my life now, and I'm good because I'm who I am now? Yeah, there's different situations or different scenarios, different settings, different people that you'll be around where you might feel a little bit more self-conscious about something. And then there's other situations where it's just not even an issue at all. I just try and within myself just be very accepting of like, you know, everything that's happened in my life and like who I am because of that, and then take it neither one way or the other. It's not a badge of honor. It's not something that I feel in any way embarrassed about or ashamed about. It just simply is and was, and this is who I am now and who I will be, and then just continue on that path and don't let it affect anything. I try not to let it affect my state. It's actually akin to like just starting doing the modelling work. It was fucking weird saying to people like, I'm doing some modelling. I was conscious that people might be like, what? Yeah. Like, who are you? Like, why are you doing this? Like, yeah, nice one, dickhead. Whatever. Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's
who decided that?
Yeah, you know, like, of course, and people make jokes and whatever, and that's cool. Like, that's part of it. But it was the same sort of thing. It was kind of like, it's not even a thing. Yeah, I'm just doing some work. Like, I'm going to go do a job. Yeah, I've got like, you know, a missing tooth or whatever it might be. It just is. You know? And I don't associate.
For the record, the tooth isn't like permanently not in his face.
No, like I can smile. I don't look like a pirate. Yeah. Like
You got a suspended sentence.
Yes.
Thankfully. I'm thankful for that. And then you end up in the custody of Nan.
Yes. Yeah.
Legend.
Daily
curfew. For people who aren't familiar with the way curfews work, you aren't allowed out of whatever the place is that you've written down as the place you're going to be at. And yours were what, like 6 to 6 or something like that?
Yeah, it was 7 to 7.
7 to 7?
Yep.
This is usually like a 12-hour window. Early?
Early.
Yeah, because they don't want you out on the streets all the time doing what you've been doing. So you did all that stuff. You got a job in a call centre.
Yes, before that I was working, it was a couple of years that I was on bail from court just until I was sentenced, about 2.5 years, to Nan, or like my family call her, Ifa, her place in Port Melbourne, and a family friend, Paul, he's a builder. He got me a job first as a brickies labourer.
Shout out, Paul.
Paul. That was awesome. So that was, again, just like a physical job. I could just get off and go do that. So I'd do that for a while, and then that was maybe about a year or so, and then, yes, got into the call centre.
That sucks.
Yeah, the call centre, that was a weird transition. But, dude,
I've done that transition, and it's not a good one.
Oh, man, it was really strange. And I was terrified going into the call centre.
Yeah.
Terrified, like calling people and stuff. But that's what set me up for ability to call people and speak to people now.
Yeah.
Talk publicly. It really helped a lot of things.
And then you started training.
Yeah.
Getting swole.
Yeah, got back into it. I was
CrossFit.
Running. Well, I had CrossFit. I had, as part of my bail conditions, I had to sign in 3 days a week at South Melbourne Police Station. So that was maybe about 1.5 Ks or something, and I was way out of shape. So what I'd do is to sign in, I'd just run there in the morning, run to the police station, sign the sheet, run home, or try to run home and just not stop. And that's kind of how exercise got back into my life.
And that's why you sympathise with Bo.
Yeah, I know exactly how he feels.
Like, I get it, fat dog.
Yeah.
It's hard when you're not up for it.
Exactly, yeah.
And then running from there to just around the corner from here, actually. It's like 2 doors down.
Yeah.
CrossFit.
Yeah, exactly
CrossFit
right.
St Kilda.
Yeah.
How important was finding that and the people there?
That was massive.
In
dude.
moving away from all that
probably
shit.
One of a few things that I think over the past 3 or 4 years that I've realised is just an absolute truth within life, is that the people that you're around have an impact on who you become. And going to CrossFit St Kilda and having Rose, and at the time it was Chris who was the coach, and then eventually Bjorn and all the other guys that were there across St Kilda, and just all the people that were training there, to be around them, they were all about 25 to 35, working, good people, successful.
Rose will be rapt that you said she's about 35.
Yes. And that changed everything. It's just like, I was like, oh, this is how normal people act and behave.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's like to just be nice and polite, and yeah, it was great. Changed everything.
How much are we not understanding that when people need help, when they're looking to change, that the older they are, kind of the more time is required? And how much are we ruining people by giving up on them too early when they've got a past that looks checkered or has a bunch of mistakes in it?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest mistake, is giving up on people early. From what I've seen over the course of the past 10 years with personal friends and just friends of friends, there's been times 5 years ago where I think one specific person really just needs to either just still, maintain some time in jail, or, be in some sort of like supportive environment around that. And just be away from society for a while, rehab, whatever. And then the older they've got, even though whether it be criminal history or whatever it is has increased, they've now gotten to a point of maturity where they're ready for absolute change. They're just like, I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. So to give up on somebody early through that makes absolutely no sense at all. Yeah.
In sparking the change, you kind of touched on it earlier. Do you think that it was getting to a point where like, oh, I've crossed the line of stuff I'm actually comfortable with and now I want to make change? Or do you think it was like, I'm the threat of punishment is like now very real and serious punishment. I mean, I'm possibly in a lot of trouble. So now I'm ready to change and almost thankful for the fact that the curfew gives me a legitimate reason to step away from the negative sort of environments that I'd been hanging out in, that just gotten a bit of bad habits in.
Yeah, for sure. I think the difficulty with like any sort of like rehabilitation or preventing people from committing crimes is that it's basically like nutrition. Like there's no one size fits all plan.
Yep.
It just doesn't work like that. So for me, that threat was enough. However, if I had have gone over and gone into prison like many friends did and then become comfortable with that environment, all of a sudden the threat of prison is the same threat to them as it was to me.
Yeah.
So it's no longer actually going to be it's not going to have the impact that it will. If there's then some form of rehabilitation program for them in prison or reason in there or whatever, maybe that's going to help, and that is what keeps them out. But it's just so different for everyone. For me, it was the threat that was enough.
I think people should probably understand that prison sucks, and that if you get comfortable in prison, it's not because prison's good. That it's, once you're comfortable in prison, you've made some lifestyle choices that don't serve you very well on the outside.
Anybody that's in prison still wants to get out. No one wants to stay. It's more so that then the threat isn't quite enough to prevent very, very tempting actions to happen, generally under some sort of like substance abuse like issue as well, whether they're drunk or doing drugs, that then leads them to go back and do something of a criminal nature that puts them back in prison. It's like it's just not quite enough of a threat to stop them doing the very tempting things out here.
I was trying to explain this to a group of people not long ago. We were trying to educate some people that were looking to hire at-risk kids, and they were saying like, oh yeah, we've got to teach them all these behaviours, because they come in and they're on their phones, or they're not wearing the right clothes, they don't make eye contact very well, they don't speak that well, they don't speak up, they don't ask for stuff to do, all these sort of things. And I was like, yeah, okay, well look, I understand that, but this is an office environment. People in here are all educated, they didn't come from the same places that these kids come from, and they feel kind of awkward. It's like, if I walk you in the yard in the prison, you'll be wearing the wrong clothes. You'll be looking at your feet. You won't be talking to people. You won't be stepping up and asking for stuff to do, because you'll be so far out of your comfort zone. And I bet like at least 3 of these kids will just walk up to somebody that they know and start talking. They're not incapable of it. But when you're really a fish out of water, I think we misinterpret those things sometimes by not giving people a chance to get comfortable. Problem is, when you're in prison and you get comfortable with a spot in prison, then it's not, like you said, it's not really as big of a deterrent, because you go, well, you keep putting me in these uncomfortable environments out here and saying this is the answer, and I don't feel comfortable here, and it's not good, and I'm not accepted. At least I have a handful of friends and a spot in the institution, even though I don't really want to be locked up. I don't want to not touch anybody or have friends that I can just go down the street and visit and stuff like that. And it's a debate that I see happening around the election here. There's people saying we need to be tougher on people and lock more people up and keep them there longer. And once you're in, that's it, you're done. And we're not giving enough time to people, actually understanding their situations, like you said, and finding that nutritional profile of help that moves them to where they might want to be.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I've got to give a shout out to Jean Bell, who is my juvenile justice worker who I'm working with at the moment. And he played a role basically in assessing whether I should go to a juvenile detention centre or an adult jail, because I was like 18 at the time of the offence and in that sort of like midway between the two. And through working with him and just taking his advice on what to do, that's why I was able to get a suspended sentence. I just did everything that he told me, and that really helped keep me out. And I work with Jean now with anybody that was basically is in the situation that I was in at that point, who he sees has merit to stay out of prison. And they come down, they'll train with me one-on-one, or with me and Jean, or to spend time just talking, that sort of thing. And the guys that have come down that have then stayed out of jail have gone on to be successful. Like, they've gone on to literally be rehabilitated through that process, not because of me, but because of the other things that they do in their life and working with Jean. So on that case by case, if like judges and if politicians are able to maintain that case by case individual approach, as opposed to saying this is just legislation, it just means that when you do this, it means there's a mandatory sentence that you have to do in incarceration. That's really, really negative for society and those people as a whole, because they just wouldn't have had that chance to actually be rehabilitated, which is what, even if you just argue that it's only going to be 50% of the equation, there needs to be some punishment and also some like rehabilitation. You're taking out the rehabilitation essentially.
Yeah. For most people, they're getting out of prison at some point. So do you want them to come out better and productive or not? Because if you're just punishing them, they just come out. Like, they're coming out again. There's very few crimes where you end up in prison forever. So, taking a bit of, a stand in that direction, I think, is important, and programs like that are massively important. What do you think people should know about these marginalised, sort of very high risk or at-risk kids, or communities that they don't know when they just cop the low light reel in the Herald Sun every week?
Well, I'd start by saying that I think that it works in both streams. So over like the past, say, 4 or 5 years, I've worked with people that are really, really high earning individuals and have highly successful businesses, and some of them have always had money and might be considered just rich, narrow-minded, like you could generalize that population of people as well.
Yeah.
So the people that might come from a more well-to-do, well-off sort of background know that just as much that people look up and see them as those individuals, but that's not always true, because I've gotten to know them, I train them, and I'm like, actually, this person that I might have suspected is going to hold certain opinions is really surprising me with their open-mindedness, more maybe like socialist ideas and opinions on things. And I'm like, wow, actually, this person isn't the stereotype.
They're not married to this ideology.
Exactly. Just because they're successful, they're not that stereotype.
Yeah.
And it works exactly the same in the other direction. So it's just both ways. And the only way that I know that is because I spent time with them and I trained them.
Yep.
If I didn't train them, I wouldn't know. And I might just assume the same thing. I think the only way that they can really get past that is actually spend time with people, which, to be honest with you, I don't know when they would do that.
Yeah.
Because these people live in a bubble that is there, which is, I think, just what we do as humans. We stay in our little subcultures of individuals, and we rarely go and explore others. But if you have the ability to do that, which luckily I do because I coach people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, I get to see that. So I can kind of break past the stereotypes.
Yeah. It's like a missing language between, for lack of a better term, the haves and the have-nots. And it's not the haves' fault that they don't understand. People don't have the same opportunities as them because that's not their experience. And when they say work hard and good things happen, that has been their experience. They are working hard. It doesn't always just come to you. And then the have-nots, it's not their fault that they don't understand how that happened and what other things are going into that being the case. And they sit there and say, hey guys, you should just help us. And they're going, you should just sort it out yourselves because we did. And in the middle there is that understanding. But it's neither of your fault that you don't get it. But in the middle is where we need to have this conversation so you can have a common language to actually better understand and move forward. Yeah,
exactly right. And I think that's why maybe guys like ourselves probably came up in a similar sort of background, somewhere in the middle, neither poverty-stricken, neither rich, just somewhere either side of the middle. That's allowed us to kind of have that perspective.
Yeah.
But anybody that's really deeply on one side or the other generally has a poor ability to understand the other side.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
It's just so far away.
Yeah, and it's hard. And I think the other thing is people misunderstand that kind of talk to people situation as in listen to a reformed criminal talk for 30 minutes and pretend like you get it. It's actually you really need a long-term engagement in either community to really understand it, because it's not all scones and cream and jam in Brighton, and it's not all gangsters stabbing each other in the flats in Paran. Yeah, so exactly. Once you spend a lot of more time with people, you get a better chance to understand that.
Yeah, that's a hard thing for people to be motivated to do, I think, particularly when it's the haves. It's if you've got everything and life's good and everything's dreamy, it's like, what's the motivation behind that?
Yeah.
Particularly if you're extremely removed from the potential dangers of the other side of living.
Yeah.
If you're so far away from it, it's just completely out of sight, out of mind. And I see that all the time. And I have a hard time giving shit to anybody who's become a really fast-track celebrity and changed or become rich really quickly, because it's a big thing to adapt to as a human being. It's hard for me to hate on that person. I don't know how I would act in
terribly.
That situation.
I can tell you straight up. I'd be the same way. If I was Justin Bieber, people would be telling me off in the paper and I wouldn't care. Yeah, I'd be the worst.
It's so hard. So I have to be somewhat empathetic to those people as well. But what the answer is to connecting those two, what the motivation is for that, finding that, I think would be a really, really good answer to have.
Yeah. At JBN we try and do it by just keeping the emphasis on long-term smaller engagements and finding ways to do it in the context of what they're doing every day. So instead of making it an additional thing, if you're an accountant and you're in a tax bracket that the guys we're helping aren't, well, if you can do an hour a week 20 weeks of the year, that's 20 times to have an interaction with someone who's maybe not the most you're not in prison yet. You maybe haven't done the worst thing yet. Well, it's not a very sexy kind of person to help because you don't have cancer and you're not already in prison. But this interaction helps people understand that it's like a step down, it's on your way down. I've got a little bit more in common with you because you haven't done all this stuff. You are motivated, and I'm like, oh, you're motivated, but you've got no idea. So now they can have that conversation and it's not so onerous for them. I remember the first time talking to a kid and he said he wanted to be a builder, and I said, it's great. So you want to do an apprenticeship? And this was a kid at the flats in Collingwood. Who's a Liberian refugee, and he was like, what's an apprenticeship? And I was like, well, there you go. That's the thing. People drive past and go, there's opportunities everywhere. You just got to go get them. And this guy doesn't even know what an apprenticeship is. Like,
yeah, exactly right. It's kind of like bringing somebody into the gym and they're like, I want to get stronger. I'm like, well, you got to just go do some squats and this and that. I'm like, what the fuck is a squat?
What is a squat? Or they do what they think a squat is, and you're like, whoa, what is that?
Exactly.
So if we take for granted that you work hard and you're clever, as everyone no doubt has already worked out, and all of the wonderful individual traits that you have, can you speak about a version of your life where you bounce through it without taking any credit for your success, by just talking about or just pulling out a couple of highlights or people and go, look, then this person or this thing happened, nothing to do with me, luck, boom, I took advantage of it because I do, but like nothing to do with me, Gene, nothing to do with me, Rose, nothing to do with me, Nan, I just got lucky, and if any of those people weren't there, I don't know what would have happened, sort of thing.
There's a lot. I think there's definitely a lot. I think the more that I've lived in Melbourne, the more that I've realised how lucky we are to be like where we are, because those opportunities come up all the time. It just happens all the time. My current business partner, Ryan Silvani, so he's a lifelong friend, known him since I was 4 years old. He was training at my facility and then was like, hey, would you like me to come on board as a business partner? And now he is, and he helps out a lot. And that was just a chance encounter where we caught up and I was like, yeah, just come and train. And then all of a sudden he's helping me out with the business, and that's been massive.
Yep.
Definitely the ones that you mentioned, Rose, Jean. A lot of them are close to home as well. Like just at the moment, like mum's moved back. Like I wouldn't be able to do the work that I can do. I spend 12 hours sometimes out of the house. And yeah, she does that. That's huge. That's a really big one.
It's a tough question because we don't look at our lives and not take credit for the stuff that happens. Yeah, I'm working my ass off, and you're like, I actually also got lucky.
Like honestly, like you coming into CrossFit St Kilda was a big one, because that meant that I had like insight into like an entrepreneurial mindset. Now, I never considered myself as potentially opening up a facility or running a gym, but then when we collaborated on Odin Performance in Port Melbourne, that gave me insights into you can just do that. Like you can just have a space and run a gym and just make it happen. Kind of figure it out as we go. And so like definitely our encounters as well, and like what I've learned from you has been huge. Definitely, particularly into opening up my own facility. Yeah. That gave me massive confidence in that.
But I think it's a good question. I think it's one we don't talk about enough.
Yeah, I think so. I think it happens all the time. I mean, there's numerous conversations where just connections are made.
Yep.
From people just walking to the gym or just in life in general, and then all of a sudden there's like a dot that's connected that wouldn't otherwise be.
And it's also about looking for the opportunities, not always just to get yourself ahead. When people tell a version of their life where like, yeah, mum was great, dad was great, my sisters were great, I met this person, they were great, they gave me some good advice, or they chopped me out, or they brought me in, or they did this thing, where then people in kind of a reverse, almost selfish way, people go, it's good to be that person as well. It doesn't have to be that I did a thing and I killed it for me, but I got a chance to be a part of someone else's journey, and without me, who knows what would have happened. I think that because we don't give those people enough credit in hindsight, and we don't talk about it enough, there's people don't look for those opportunities. They pass them by. If it's a net no gain interaction, maybe I won't do it, but actually that might be massive for somebody else. If you start looking for how people did that for you and what that looked like, maybe you'll act accordingly as well.
Yeah, most definitely.
Like you do now with Gene's kids. They're big things. They take time and they take emotional investment, and no doubt down the track, not straight away because no kid gets it straight away, but down the track they go, actually, hanging out with people who just have a normal life and do normal stuff and don't just drink all day and fight each other. Oh, okay. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, that actually feels really good.
I thought that was just for rich people, so I didn't really get that. One great thread of culture that I notice for people from certain backgrounds is the culture of hip-hop. We're both big hip-hop fans, and I know you have some of the most gangster handwriting and whiteboard skills in the class write-up game. How important are those cultural elements now? It's a nice little handle on the old days that's not necessarily a negative.
Like hip-hop culturally is something that's definitely had a huge impact on just like my interests. And
by the way, Paris is one of the whitest humans you'll ever see.
So white, dude. I can't fucking dance for shit. Like, I never dance. Dan's going to, one of my friends and coaches at Praxis Athletic will go to a hip-hop dance class soon when I grow some balls and go with him. But
oh, man, I'm in. I'll come.
Yeah, I know you were.
We'll go see Phil Haddad.
Dude, you can dance. You tried to give me dance lessons last night and we went out. And so
that was good. That was good.
Yeah, so, look, I love, like, everything about that. Yeah, look, I don't know what benefits necessarily that's given me. I think it's just something that deciders thoroughly enjoy. It's certainly given me an appreciation for different forms of like artistic expression, and like hip hop as a whole is. I mean, anybody that trains Praxis Athletic, that's what we're pumping all the time.
That's what you're getting.
Yeah, that's just what's happening. But it's just the way it is.
It's great.
For most of our classes, sometimes Oscar will put on like something pretty. Oscar, one of our coaches and a good friend of both of ours, something a little bit more mellow and chill. But for the most part, it's just going to be hip hop all the time.
It's hipping and it's hopping.
Yeah.
Couple of favorite rappers, maybe a couple of street artists. Shout out your homies here if you want.
Ooh, that's a big question. Rappers like Big L, Tupac, Biggie, Nas, Big Pun.
Big Pun
too.
So many.
That's have you ever tried to answer that question?
Dude, shocking question. It's on the spot too.
Like the top 5, like
I get to write the questions out, and I still don't have answers to them.
Top 5's good. I think you got to go generationally with top 5 because it's so different. Like if you got to pick one from say like the 80s or something like that, as far as like a hip hop artist, like you might be like, all right, like Rakim or KRS-One were like epic.
Yeah.
Then you get into the 90s, like early 90s, you could go, oh my god, like Nas was like insane.
Most Def.
Yeah, Most Def. Definitely a fan of Most Def. Who's someone?
Just rolls on.
There's so many
Tupac,
people. Yeah, so many people.
Big impact. Snoop Dogg, some of his stuff. But, I mean, he's put out 275 albums now.
It's ridiculous. Somebody told me to get his album recently, and I didn't realise it was just a whole, like, gospel album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and, like...
Well, he's a dad with a show about his kids and stuff these days, so...
Yeah, I mean, compared to, like, when he was making pornos and just...
In court for murdering someone. Now he's like cooking cookies on and taking his kids to soccer practice. It's crazy.
It's the best, yeah. As far as like graffiti writers or artists, probably just like all his friends of mine, like Ozone. There's so many. He's probably like one of my favorite writers who's like got like style, muscles, for hand styles. Like this, so many people.
Gives you a chance to shout people out, and you'll let some people down.
So many people. Got to shout out Baylor. He's come through and done a lot of work for us at the gym.
Yep. You've been through like a bit of a journey. We've had a little bit of a chat from sort of start to finish, and hopefully people get a little bit of a sense that opportunities matter to people. Regardless of where they're at any given point in time. That's what we're all about. How do you recognize opportunities?
That's a great question. I think that when I mentioned before about being in touch, like how things make you feel, I think the more conscious you are about how things make you feel, the more easy it is to feel an opportunity come on board. You sense it. And it's like, people talk about like, I could feel it in my gut that was the right thing to do. Or I had this like, there was just something telling me that I should go there or whatever. That's the first thing. Just get in tune with like how things make you feel. How does a conversation with somebody make you feel? Secondly, I think listening and asking questions about other people is huge. If you don't know about somebody else, you don't know about what opportunities they can give you. A good friend of mine, Pete, who I caught up with last night, and Pete is another person who I would say is somebody by chance encounter has become a huge sort of inspiration for me and big support for where I want to go in life. He's just always talking with people. The guy just connects with people all the time. On a plane the other night, coming back from Sydney, chatted with a guy and just like managed to tee up some sort of business arrangement, and they're going to probably be doing some good things in the future. And that comes from just being outwardly conversational with people and actually caring and asking about other people.
Yeah,
that allows you to like actually find some opportunities. So get in touch with how things, I guess, how you react to things. And then start asking questions. And then also just don't be afraid to actually like fuck shit up. I think that's probably the biggest thing is people see an opportunity and they think, because most people can kind of get a sense that could be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
But then it's the fear of taking that on board that really stops them from doing it because they think they might fail.
You might, by the way.
It could just
could totally happen.
It could just completely go wrong. And I think, having had so many failures throughout life and, just things that didn't quite go the way that I wanted them to, and then coming out the other side and be like, wasn't that bad? It's okay. And just keep doing that. Like the only recipe for really success is just to keep failing until you succeed. Like it's not actually complicated. Just keep going. Pay attention to what went wrong and then just fix that and keep going again. So if you can remove that fear and know that failure actually doesn't really hurt that bad, it's not that big a deal. No one gives a shit. Failure, that feeling of like, oh God, there's like social pressure. People saw that I didn't succeed. that lasts as long as like the latest story about Kanye talking about Trump or something does. In 6 months, no one gives a shit. He puts out an album and he's like king of the world again. They love it. So that's literally how I approach life now with that. So I think that really, really helps you take on opportunity.
I totally agree with the sentiment of just getting into it and just having a crack. And, you know, it's not over till it's over. So something goes wrong, you just pick it up wherever it fell and
just do it
jog
again.
on with it. Yeah.
It's like everything else. It's so simple. It's not that big of a deal.
But it takes a lot longer than I think people realise most of the time.
Much, much longer. I think part of that, something that I often look back to is school years when, like, you'd remember from being in, say, like high school and like, fuck, I don't know, you get a pimple on your head or some shit, or like there's something that's so minor now that you look back on, but at the time seemed like this huge issue. Yeah. I just think like the things, like I'm 29 now, the things that I worry about and stress about now as a 29-year-old, when I'm 50, I'll look back and I'm like, whatever. Like it's nothing. So I know that that's going to come. Like that time will come when I look back on these like apparent stresses and look at them as absolute nothings. Yeah. So I try and just kind of project myself into that older self, and it makes everything seem far less big of a deal, even when it is a big deal.
This is a little bit of a corny question as we get close to the end here. What inspires you?
That's a good question. I like that question. I think that probably finding something that is, and this is very common advice, I think most people would have heard this, finding something that is, you know, bigger than yourself to care about allows me to work a lot and not really care about necessarily if I'm tired or, you know, whatever it may be, and that will inspire me to go and do more or try and stretch myself further. You know, that thing, generally speaking, is going to be animal welfare. That's something that I found that once I, you know, went down the path of being a vegan, that I cared more and more and more about what's done within the animal agricultural industry, more about the care for animals. So the aspiration will be to set up an animal sanctuary in the future so that we can supply a place for animals that have been either abused or, you know, in one way or another taken out of that system of abuse within that industry, and we can care for them, provide a place for that. That's why I want the business to succeed. I definitely want to help as many people along that path as I possibly can, but that end goal of having that, which has to be set up through a lot of financial gain and business success, that's something that I work towards pretty much every day, and I remind myself often. And then previous failures inspire me. So just knowing that, like, I know what it was like to be there, you know, with like a little bit of a more negative,
bit of a chip on the shoulder,
more of like a negative outlook on things. I know what that feels like. I know what language I use at that point that kind of perpetuated this negativity. Reminding myself of that inspires me not to be that person, to be somebody else. And the third and final thing that I think inspires me is like just all the people around me. You know, the people around you create who you are. So when you and I spend time together, you inspire me. When I spend time with Pete, he inspires me. Spend time with, you know, talking to my family, they inspire me big time. Yeah,
that's a great answer. Not just because I featured in it. Amazing. Now, I have some been questions, and I had this really pithy question at the end, but you're the second vegan that's come in, and so it doesn't work as well. And I think we're 2 vegans and a vegetarian already, so abs or kebabs is the question, but I'll take falafel, anything in there.
What does that mean?
Would you prefer? I mean, you have abs already, so, you know, I think we know the answer. And if anyone's unsure, I'll put a good photo up of a couple. But yeah, I just saw a meme and I was like, that's funny. I'm just going to put that in at the end. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just ask that every podcast.
Abs or kebabs, as in like eat all the food.
Would you prefer abs or kebabs, basically? Yeah.
I think abs.
Yeah, I know you prefer abs.
You can do more with abs, dude. Like, I mean, once you've eaten the kebab, you can't do shit with it except for you've just eaten it.
Just shit it. Literally,
you can literally just shit it again.
I know.
So, but once you've got abs, I think you can do that. Like, you can use them for stuff.
Right? I'm gonna call this season like 10 episodes, and then I'll review these questions. If this is an abject failure of a question over and over again.
I just don't, like, I don't know. I'm trying to imagine who's choosing the kebab, and it's like
people who don't care about abs.
Is that why? Because you've chosen kebab.
I'm kebab life. Obviously, you can give a gift to every one of the guys and girls that you grew up with. You can give each one of them a gift. It's the same gift, obviously. Mm-hmm. What would you give them?
I'd give them the gift of forward thinking to a future that they would never, ever be able to imagine for themselves. So I don't know whether that's two gifts, but it's like the gift of imagining that they can actually go beyond where they currently are.
Yeah.
In scenarios where you become surrounded by people doing the same thing that are all negative, whether that be in prison or outside, and that's just what your family does and that's all your friends do, you are in that bubble, and seeing any sort of future beyond that becomes near on impossible. Just like the people that have made a lot of money find it very hard to imagine or picture a future without what they've got. So I'd definitely give them the gift of the gift of forward thinking. I'm going to give them two, because actually probably the other one that I'd give, and this was probably just like one that I'd give to all people, is like the gift of understanding like greater levels of compassion, not just for animals, because that's what I care about, but I think that compassion is often particularly within a very masculine society or masculine communities, which most criminals or subcultures are. Compassion is looked down upon. It's not something that's promoted as a good thing. It's kind of looked as upon something that just means that you're weak, and therefore that you're not going to be like the top of the food chain. I'm sure there's some sort of like evolutionary explanation for that, but I just don't think it's necessary in today's society. I don't think that as men we need to be not compassionate.
Yeah.
So if I could somehow like give that to more people as well, there'd be a lot of changes. Anybody that's very, very well off and separated from people that are doing worse than them, to an extent within society, they've lost compassion for those people. Anybody that's looking at that refugees coming over and they're just like, well, you should just stay there, whatever. They've just lost the sense of compassion because they're so far removed. So that would be a good gift as well.
It's a great gift for everybody. I recommend both those gifts, actually. That's a fantastic answer. How do you know if you're doing a good job?
How I feel, I think. Maybe it's just because I'm just like, I feel a lot. Is that the right way to put it? Like that's how I kind of like associate myself or connect with the world. Is like what I'm feeling tells me about everything. So if I feel in myself like, wow, I didn't do as much as I could, and I'm honest with myself, very, very honest, then I just know it.
Yeah.
But at times, that's why I take naps, dude. I'm like, it just gets to that point where I'm like, if I want to continue to do a good job, I need to give myself this until I've stretched my current ability to do more. I know what it feels like to be exhausted and unproductive because of that, so I take a break.
Yeah. Whether
it be half a day off sometimes. I'm just like, I can't do it. There's no point. It's not going to be as good. So yeah, I just feel it. I can just tell.
When people have a clear direction and they understand where they're going and what that might require, I feel like feelings become very relevant then. It's the people who aren't sure where they're going, feelings can pull you off track because you start to chase good feelings rather than hold yourself accountable to the fact that your feelings are alerting you that you're not doing things that sort of align with your North Star, with the direction you're trying to go.
Yeah, very true.
So I think for you, 100%, that totally makes sense. You can pass a law right now. What do you pass?
It'd probably be like an obvious answer. It would be that, I don't know. Could I pass that law? I'd kind of like to pass a law where people weren't allowed to eat or use animals in any sort of industrial setting. That would likely be my law.
Boom.
It would be that, there's no animal agriculture industry at all.
Okay.
And the repercussions of that, whether they be financial or whatever, I'd be happy to wear.
Well, you're not going to wear any of them. You're already not engaged in that industry, so that's fine for you.
So it's... That it'd be something along those lines.
Yeah,
I can't imagine another one that I'd care about more.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. Whether it's like maybe I need to be more compassionate to human beings. I just think that humans have it.
Where's your compassion for meat eaters, bro?
I know. Maybe I need to find some. I'm not too sure.
Vote Paris if you're into that thing. Final question. I should just let everyone know that we started this off in the evening and I didn't turn the overhead lights on. And there's just a candle going right now. Just a candle and a bit of street light coming in through the window.
It's so romantic.
Yeah. This is nice. I've enjoyed it so far. Your favourite way to just be nice?
Smile when people talk to you and when you greet them.
It's great.
It's just that.
That's a great way. Let people know.
Just smile. Just don't look at somebody when they say hi to you and smile at you and don't smile back. Just smile.
Tell people where they can find you, bro.
You can find me at Paris_little on Instagram, or you can hit me up, Paris at praxisathletic.com.au. You can also find our website, which is www.praxisathletic.com.au, and that has all information about Praxis Athletic. Or Facebook, I don't know, just search me up.
If you got all the way through this and you heard that and you already follow him, follow me. You're killing the Instagram game at the moment. You're doing good.
Get on it.
I'm just the guy who takes some of the photos, so it's not that exciting. Dude, it's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. I appreciate you very much, and I love you heaps, man. I thank you so much for coming in, and I'm glad we could make this happen. Follow him, check out his stuff, get amongst it. Go check him out at Praxis, say what up, and yeah, thanks for coming in, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. The feeling is very much mutual, my friend. Thank you.
Legend. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. If you did enjoy it, we would really appreciate it if you could share it with others that you think might also enjoy it. Check out the show notes to find out more. Like, subscribe, maybe even give us a rating if it's a good one. Remember that we care. You matter. Have an amazing day. And as always, just be nice.